Hey guys, this is the Layer Detective, and today we're going to be doing a deck profile. So this is my first time using QuickTime Player, so hopefully you will like this. If anything's wrong, just tell me in the comment section below, because I have never used this, and this is very weird to me. But yeah, today I'm going to be coming at you with my Relinquished deck. This is a really nice deck. It's a very fast playing deck. You get control of the board pretty damn easily. It does have a lot of things that are similar to Pegasus's original deck, but it works extremely well, really fast, like I said. So, without further ado, let's take a look at the cards. So, first we're running, of course, 3 Relinquished, our main ritual monster. His effect is that once per turn you can target a monster your opponent controls, equip that target to this card. You can only equip one monster at a time with this card. With this card's effect, this card's attack and defense become equal to that equipped monster's. So that's pretty good. But if your opponent doesn't have any monsters, then you're kind of gonna have to be on your defenses a little bit. If this card's attack and defense become equal, oh sorry, if this card will be destroyed by battle, destroy that monster instead. So that's pretty good. But of course, like I said, there are a few flaws. He's not the most powerful monster in the world, but he still is pretty damn good. One thing about my decks is that I don't always like running synchro and Xyz and crazy stuff like that. And also, just I apologize if you're gonna hear me sniffing a little bit because I do have a bit of a cold. Um, but yes, so that's our Relinquished. Next to go along to get out our Relinquished in a few turns is our Manju of 10,000 Hands. When this card is normally flip summoned, you can add a ritual monster or ritual spell card from your deck to your hand. He's a pretty decent level 4 monster even without the effect, but the effect is really good in the fact that since there's so many different cards in this deck that can be helped to summon Relinquished, if you get at least either the Manju on your first turn or Relinquished or some of the other cards in this deck, you're probably really all the way on a great start. And plus, if you already have Relinquished in your hands with the Manju, you can summon the Manju and then you can uh, take the spell card and then tribute the Manju and then get out Relinquished on your first turn, which is great. This is a deck that is kind of good to go second in your second turn with, but yeah, even though Thousand Eyes Restrict is banned, I have Thousand Eyes Idle in here just because he's good for setting up a defense, even though he only has, well, 0 defense as you can see right there. But he still is good in the fact that if you get him on the board and you already have your Black Illusion Ritual with you at the time, then you can already he's a level 1 and that level 1 is going to come into play later and I'll show you. And I'll show you why. Next, we have an Effect Veiler just because, again, he's level 1, so it's going to work with the card that's going to come up later, which I'm going to show you. And also, effect veilers are always good. Summoner Monk is great because of the fact that you can get out your Manju with Summoner Monk's effect, and there are so many spell cards in this deck that you can just discard for Summoner Monk. Not all of the spell cards in this deck are needed. And by needed, I mean there will be some times when they are extremely useful, but in most circumstances, especially with the double ritual cards, which I'll explain, it's definitely not worth having those in your hands when you can't use them. So we have that. Next, we actually have a Blackluster Soldier Envoy because we do have the Manju, and then that is a light monster. We have Effect Veiler, who is light. But then we just have Thousand Eyes Idol and Relinquished and Summoner Monk are all dark. Except I doubt that we're gonna want to banish the Relinquished though. So it's just helpful in a tight squeeze. I never actually summoned him with this deck, but he still is helpful to have. Next, even though I know that this is another card that Pegasus used, I play Jigen Bakudan if you're in a really helpless situation. Plus he's good for tributing because he's a low level monster, and I don't know what, but when I want to make this Relinquished deck, I just wanted to have a lot of Pegasus's cards in the deck. So, but he still works really, really well with the deck. Um, so now we're going to go on to this Black Illusion Ritual here. And what this does is it lets you summon Relinquish, which is really, really great. Um, and of course, the total levels have to equal 1 or more. And now we come to the reason that we have Thousand Eyes Idol and Effect Veiler, which is Contract with the Abyss, because it can be used to summon any dark ritual monster. I didn't run 3 of them because that would just be useless, but then again, you still can discard it for Summoner Monk. Um, but you have to tribute monsters from your hand or field who levels equals exactly the level of the ritual monster. So that's why level 1 Thousand Eyes Idol and Effect Veiler comes into play. I don't end up using that so much. This is only a last resort if your Black Illusion rituals somehow go to the grave and you still have some relinquished left. Next up is Preparation of Rites. It's add one level 7 or lower ritual monster from your deck to your hand, then you can add a ritual spell card from your graveyard to your hand. So that's really good for getting back your relinquished, especially if you discarded one of them for Summoner Monk, which is just really helpful. Next up is a Soul Charge. You target any monsters in your graveyard, special summon them, and if you do, you lose 1,000 life points for each monster special summoned by this effect. You cannot conduct your battle phase the turn you activate this card. You can only activate one Soul Charge per turn. Of course, this was before it was limited to one. But this is really good, especially if you don't have any more Black Illusion rituals or Contract with the Abyss, which is unlikely. But if you want to get back your Manjus or your Thousand Eyes or your Effect Veilers or Summon Monks, blah blah blah, you can take them back. And it's just one, so it's not going to overwhelm you. Uh, and one thing I like about Ritual Monsters is it says you can ritual summon this card with blank. So that means it can be special summoned from the grave with something like Soul Charge. Next up is Monster Reincarnation, especially if you're planning to do something with the Manju and you don't want to use if you don't want to pay 1,000 life points, you can just get this. And if you already have something in your hand or field to use with the Black Illusion Ritual and the Monster Reincarnation, you can take your Relinquished. And let's say you already have one of these, and that's just helpful. Of course, Regeki is good in every single deck. So yeah, I have that here. The Shallow Grave. The reason that I have this is because Jigen Bakudan is a flip monster, and also Manju of 10,000 hands. It says when this card is normal or flip summoned, so I guess that's a good way to get that one back. Next is Card Trader. Once per turn during your standby phase, you can shuffle one card from your hand into your deck and draw one. I think that's actually a really, really good one. Especially because we might have a lot of these extra contracts or extra Black Illusion rituals, so we're gonna want that. Next, we have one Black Horn of Heaven, one Solemn Wishes. I really like that card. It lets you gain life points. One Solemn Warning, one Compulsory Activation device. I just said that wrong. Whatever. One Bottomless. And even though not everyone likes these cards, I always like to run at least one Magic Cylinder or Mirror Force. In this case, I run two of each because if your opponent normal summons a monster and it's once per turn, so that means probably during your turn, not during either player's turn. So if your opponent summons a monster and your relinquished is white out for attack, of course you don't want it to get destroyed. So this is just a backup just to stop them and hold them off long enough. I guess that Mirror Force might not be the exact best choice because you're gonna want to get a monster for relinquished. So I guess I could swap that out, but next we have two Call of the Haunteds, just again to get back your monsters, similar to the Shallow Grave. Um, one Magic Jammer. I really like this card because it stops spells, and two Regeki Break. And yeah, that about wraps it up for my Relinquished deck. Please comment in the description below and tell me if this deck could be any better. I would like to know. I did make this deck quite a while ago, but it is a really, really fast moving deck. So be sure to check it out. And yeah, I hope you like this deck profile, and bye.